When the computer was first introduced to the world, everyone thought that computer was a calculator. And with the use of ASCII codes, we could turn numbers into letters. Then everyone thought that computer was a typewriter. Then came in the graphics. Then everyone thought that computer was a television. Then with the advent of World Wide Web, it has more or less become a sales brochure. That's how the capabilities and the technologies are changing every day and every second as we watch it. And today on Hot Seat on Sri Lanka Live, we're going to talk about the importance of information technology as well as the communication technology for the forward march of any country. And with me is on Hot Seat today is the Business Country Manager of Intel, Mr. Indika Zoysa. Welcome, Mr. Zoysa.
Hi. Yes.
First, would like to know, why do you think that ICT, the information communication technology, is important to development of any country?
So if you look at across the world, ICT is getting spread, as your introductory note says, calculator and how it moved. So if you look at long years ago, Intel made digital calculators. So that is how it started, exactly the evaluation happens like that. So today, the ICT has become a tool that across any industry, what you get into it, it's a mandatory requirement. Mm-hmm. So this is how ICT is. I'd say primarily there are ICT specific opportunities, there are IT specific jobs available. So that's all about development and all that works happens in that. But apart from that, ICT is required for any professional, any function. It can be a teacher, which is teacher will use ICT as a tool to teach, or it can be a doctor, which is they will do all the analysis using ICT. So it's not basically nowadays, it's not only a computer. ICTs can go into things like from wearables, which is the newest thing which is we're talking about, and to your data analysis and goes on, which use get your weather reports or your health records, all that is basically getting digitized, and ICT is basically across all these segments.
If a country to develop the information technology infrastructure, what are the components that the institutions and the governments should have emphasis on?
So different governments has different agendas, or with the strengths what we have. So let's take Sri Lanka as example. So one of the key things, Sri Lanka has been focusing on the IT BPO sector. So this has been grown very rapidly. So 10 years ago or so, which is Sri Lanka identified this development, and basically they come up with the plan of, which is we started calling it the Sri Lanka program. So this was actually launched 10 to 11 years ago. So that time as a country we set up certain goals. So ICTA was born part of that, which is the Information Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka. And that is the same time with the invitation of the government, Intel basically came and opened up the operations in Sri Lanka. Similarly, there are other multinational operations organizations also came and started operations in Sri Lanka in the similar time. So this is the, I can call it this is where the steep boom started happening. And also, government also took certain steps, they basically remove value-added tax. At that time, there was 15% value-added tax on the IT component. So that was reduced to zero. So that means your affordability of IT products basically came down, and people could afford that 15% goes away. And so few key things. What you need to be IT literate. So what do you mean by IT literacy? You should be able to use a PC or the technology and do your day-to-day things. It can be doing some online learning, or even things like the government services which is available today. You can get birth certificate online or your revenue license online. So these services, so whether people can make use of these tools which is available in an easier way and do it. So IT literacy is the first thing. And then we need broadband, which is to access all this, right? So, and also government was focusing on two more things, which is they were looking at getting IT related jobs. So government set a goal of setting up 80,000 jobs to be created by 2016. And also earlier the goal was $1 billion of export earning. Now I think they have increased up to 5 billion by 2020. 2016 they were looking at 1 billion. So there's a foreign currency coming into the country on that. So and 10 years ago we were at about less than 4% of the IT literacy rate. and 2 to 3% lesser, or 2 to 3% or lesser on the broadband penetration. So Sri Lanka is a country which always had an edge, especially in this part of the world, on
You would say
education.
in the South Asian region.
Yeah, South Asian region or even Asia Pacific, I can say, right? When you look at after the independence, right, we have been one of the countries growing very fast, and two key things, right? The free education in the country and the free health, right? So we were always talking about healthy education, people. That's what had been there from the independence. After independence, that has been driving. So we had high 90s of literacy rate. So that has been there. Probably now certain countries in the Asia Pacific, like who fast track their the economic development, and they have catch up. But still, Sri Lanka is a country from long history we have been having that. So what exactly that means? We have that intellectual capability in our country. But now we look at it. If you look at the indicators, nobody is talking about the literacy rate.
Yeah.
But they measure you as ICT literacy rate. So that is become a critical piece. So we can be keep boosting about we have a high 90s literacy rate, but if you are not IT literate, that is like you are going into Stone Age kind of situation. We are going back. So now, which is, as I said, like which is government or the decision makers set that goal of they want to reach 75% IT literacy rate by 2060. So they set 4 goals. IT literacy rate of 75% by 2016, broadband 60% of the population by 2016, 80,000 ICT jobs will be created, and 1 billion plus jobs export revenue for the country by 2016. So that is now grown to 5 billion plus by 2020. So now, if you look at a check today, IT literacy has crossed 50%. Broadband has crossed more than 30%, and ICT jobs has 30 to 40,000 jobs has been created. And on the 1 billion goal, I think we are getting very close to that on the export revenue. So if you take a step back and see what we did as a nation, as a country, all right. So we need to look at one of the key things is the education, the future generation, right? So we're talking about technology and getting in. We need to first get the future generation IT savvy.
No, we'll come to that. Education reforms needed as of now. In fact, Mr. Zoysa, if you take the new technological era, there are 2 stages. One is before Google and after Google, BG and AG. And in this after Google era, what do you think? What are the new developments that we should adapt into our policies in order to boost our IT infrastructure and the IT knowledge?
So most of the things is becoming online. So say before going into the policy side of the story, right? If you take a simple example of Facebook, right? Most of us keep in touch with our friends, say after Facebook was came into the system. I think I met some of my school friends virtually after 15 years, which is you found them online and you started talking to them and you got in touch with them, right? This is a very simple, basic example. So most of the services are getting it. So we talk about the big data, cloud, all this basically evolved around it, right? Which is most of the services are getting online today. And what this means is, so simple example, if you take a Sri Lankan as example, somebody who's in, we say, Badulla, Polonnaru or any of these places or even far away place, to get some certificate or birth certificate, which is the person has to travel all the way to Colombo, do it, spend overnight, all that has to be done. But here, within no time, you see basically you go to one of the telecenters which is available, things like government has set up, even things like the Nanasalas which is available right now. One of these places, go do all your applications online, which is your certificate will come online, right? So even if you're within the Colombo area, Western Province, still you can get your revenue license online, which is you save half a day straight away rather than going to get the. So all these services are getting online, right? So now minimum, all of us do a lot of banking, right? Banking is virtually online right now, right? And you hardly visit a bank. You do your transaction, you put a standing order, you check your balances, everything. You get your balance statement also on an email alert, right? And that is the landscape is totally changing. Your practices, the way you do things, it's getting changed. Like, even if you look at your media, all right, digital media is becoming like, one of the biggest things today. And now, if you look at a lot of large corporate, if you look at the 500 Fortune companies even today, they have a separate big budget going in for digital media advertising. So that is become a very focused area. Like, traditional above the line is kind of getting reduced and reduced. Even things like when you drive around, even in Colombo today, right, you see a lot of digital boards coming in.
Yeah.
So when earlier days you put a flex, that's be there forever. Like, if the heavy rain comes in, like, it get damaged. So here you can run many more messages, right? And nowadays you don't physically go and put it in a thumb drive or a CD, right? You push it from wherever you are, and you get all this. So everything from top to bottom is getting changed.
So basically a matter of sending space.
Yes.
With me on Hot Seat today on Sri Lanka Live is the country business manager of Intel, Mr. Indika Zoysa. Welcome back to Hot Seat on Sri Lanka Live. With me is Mr. Indika Zoysa, the country business manager of Intel. Mr. Zoysa would like to know what education reforms are needed as of now, especially to build an IT savvy generation.
So probably right now I can say we are very much on track on the K-12 space specifically. I can take few examples and talk about how it's evolved. Like, even 10 years ago, as I started, like, all these programs were started. Ministry of Education is one of the key institutions that the IT adoption was taken in, and actually they fast tracked on it. So I said, like, the 75% IT literacy rate target was set. One of the key contributors definitely has to be the education.
Yeah.
Because we have 4 million students, and, like, every year 350 to 400,000 students are coming out of this. So that means if we produce that, if we get those kids who's coming out of schools IT literate, that means we are getting very close to that mark of 75%. And also, set of that students basically go into the 80,000 jobs what we are going to create. So actually, I will take one step back also, like, what if you become IT literate, what you can do, even your day-to-day life, you have to be IT literate today. Any job you go today, first thing what you will get a PC and an email ID. That's the first thing you will get.
It's not anymore optional, it's mandatory.
Mandatory. And probably you will not get a table either. You will get a laptop and say, start working. You will not have a table and a chair, right? That's what you get. So if you are not IT literate, you are done. You can't do anything. You can start the first thing you have to do, right? So simple as that. So now education system has, or the Ministry of Education has taken this step. So actually they started investing 10 years ago or so. What they did was they started creating labs in the schools. So 20 PCs, 30 PCs in a lab, and they basically started adopting ICT into the school. So initial phase was you need to get, like, familiar with ICT, get them trained on ICT. That was the first era. Then, like, they started scaling up number of schools which is going in. So initially there were a lot of resistance, like, even I have seen on myself, like, when you go to these schools, the PCs will go into the school, they'll keep it lock and key, and they will not use it. It's an expensive thing, like, they need to explain, no, you can't keep it locked. You have to use it, it won't break, like, after 3 years or 4 years, this will become, like, obsolete.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean to 100 years you can use it, right? So those practical issues are there back 10 years ago. I mean, when you introduce something new, people always have that resistance, right? Minister of Education did a very good job of getting that adoption, right? Initially, we had a Asian Development Bank grant coming from the Ministry of Education of ICT education. So right now, in my understanding, out of the close to 10,000 schools, what we have, about 6 to 7,000 schools has PC labs. Now, even if you look at the latest stage, which is the 1,000 schools project, actually they created 60 PCs each, 1,000 PC labs in the school system. So now infrastructure, yes, we have got PCs. What next? I mean, you get PCs, it doesn't mean everything is going to happen, right? So now we need to get teachers trained, right? First, you need to get the teachers trained to use the PC, and then use PC as a tool to teach. So that's the critical piece. So you say primarily you will have an ICT teacher who's talking about ICT, teaching about ICT. Then you need to get the teachers whose basically subject is science, maths, biology, all these teachers to basically use PC as a tool and teach. So now Ministry of Education took a lot of steps like things like ICTL, all these programs basically came in. So Intel also has programs of similar part of our non-sales work what we do. So we have a program called Intel Teach program. So basically we stepped in and we basically told the government of Sri Lanka we call ourselves as a trusted advisor. So we basically went in and we actually so far as of today we have trained about 40,000 teachers out of the 240,000 cadre using this Intel Teach program. So we have also helped in that way. So I think if my memory correct, there's about 150 to 160,000 teachers have been trained on ICT on the system. So now we have frequent, we have broadband goes to the schools, and we have teachers trained now, which is in the schools. ICT is being used to teach subjects.
Mr. De Zoysa, we talk about a lot of all these developments taking place when it comes to ICT, but we still see there's a lot of resistance, especially from the workforce, when it comes to adapting the new technologies to their business organizations, like both in the private sector as well as in the public sector. How can we change the attitude of the workforce to adapt new technologies to their business operations?
Oh, that has been there. As I said initially in the school example also, you had that resistance, right? But when you see how your life gets changed or how your way of doing things gets changed, they definitely take that as an advantage. So initially people resist because they worry what will happen to my job, or we are talking about PC or computer is coming and reducing the number of people in your office. Do I lose my job? Though all those fears will come in, right? If this breaks, will they reduce this for my salary? I mean, all those basically will come in. But over a period of time, when they understand that basically they can make use of this for their work life and even for your personal life, all of us use for entertainment. You listen to music, watch movies, everything you do, right? It's a multi kind of a device now what we use. So even now one thing is the newer generation which is coming out from the education sector, or kids who are coming out of the schools are basically used to ICT, so they don't have the resistance basically coming in. But the challenge is, okay, how do we basically get that generation who didn't had that exposure? That is where I've seen these people I had about 2 years to retire. Why do I learn ICT, right? So that's good. Learn ICT. When you retire, you can talk to your grandchildren via Skype. You can do so many things online. As an example, I say, if I'm a teacher, you can do a lot of assignments. You use your knowledge, do a lot of things online, go and read things about health tips. Even you're retired doesn't mean that ICT will go away, right? Which helps you to keep you entertained, all that basically. So directly answer your question, yes, awareness need to be created, and awareness to be created about the benefits what you get out of ICT. So I'll touch one more point on there. It's the parents has that scare, their kids will get into unwanted things of using, good and bad both.
Yeah.
But there are measures has been taken. Actually, the government of Sri Lanka has taken those measures. Even the schools, they have actually has a landing page which is all those will be filtered. Even the regulator level, right? It is being controlled at which will be not able to access, which is not suitable for the consumption. So those control mechanisms are there, and we'll have a control. And also the PCs which specifically goes to the kids, you have parenting control on that. So parents can actually check what they have been doing. Are they playing games or are they studying using a PC? So those options technology has been given room to enable these kind of tools.
Mr. De Zoysa, I want to touch on those control mechanisms as well. Now, we see there are some organizations who have adapted good IT mechanisms to their business operations, and at the same time, they have put into place barriers to access to some of the social sites. How do you see this scenario?
So primarily, if you look at it in the initial stages, right, when they had broadband, which is coming into your office, and you see, as an example, a lot of people accessing Facebook, your broadband bandwidth get choked, right? And your bill will go up. So corporates prefer, okay, I don't want to get my bandwidth choked, and also want to make sure, like, I don't want to pay a bill for people accessing Facebook or watching movies online, right? But now, say Sri Lanka is one of the countries with the broadband cost is lowest in the world right now, right? And also, even corporates understand, like nowadays, they don't restrict. Some yes still do. Thinking like, as example, you took a financial institute or a bank or something, which is they will doesn't want, like, people coming, which is coming and accessing it, or like, try somebody is going to hack it, probably they'll have those firewalls, all that. But generally, when you put the security measures in place, and like, say if you're working for a long hours, you want a stress buster kind of a thing, you can go and watch a YouTube video for 2 minutes, get your mind settled, all. So if you even, like, the simple example, like, you get some new, say as an example, you get a new phone, you don't know how to transfer your the numbers from data from the old one to new one. You go search, you say from whatever the brand, whatever the model number, I will transfer these, you will YouTube video will pop up, it will exactly show do this, right? So it's simple as that. So I mean, nowadays corporates are actually getting into it, and also even corporates are moving to, even especially in the Western market, right? Like, when they call it bring your own device. They don't restrict, like, bring your own device and do your work. Again, technology has evolved, like, in a way. Now, if you are in a long distance, if you have to do something at home, physically nowadays you don't have to be in office on a modern environment, which is you do your work from home. So simply, like, you save your travel time, if you will save, like, as example, you say, as your kid is not keeping well or something, you have to take care of the kid. You take care of the kid at home, you do your work, you are less stressed. Now, say, just look at a parent, if your kid is not well, you have to come to office, but your mind is still at home, your work will be not productive. There, everything happens, which is technology helps you to do that, and more productivity is increased, your personal life, whatever, all that is being done. So this is what the total change about technology, how technology helps you to change your way of doing things and increase productivity.
With me on Hot Seat today is Mr. Indika Zoysa, the Country Business Manager of India. Welcome back to Hot Seat on Sri Lanka Live. Mr. Zoysa, how important and how critical it is to have political stability and good governance in place in any country in order to boost the IT infrastructure?
I think political stability and good governance is a critical thing. It's immaterial with ICT or any industry, because country to grow, a lot of investment need to come in. Country like Sri Lanka, we need a lot of foreign investment to come in, and also people need to have that faith. So that's, I think, immaterial of ICT or any other industry. That's critical. If you directly look at from an ICT point of view, again, the policy, what we make, there should be a continuation. So one critical thing, one good thing we can call, say for the last 12 years or so, when the Sri Lanka was launched, we had, there was a UNP regime, and there was SLFP 2 regimes, with two different, like, policy documents was there. But ICT is one of the things which had a very continuous flow. Was not changed. What was started 12 years ago had a very continuous growth. As I said,
you mean to say that there was kind of a national policy towards ICT?
Yes, the Sri Lanka was the national policy of ICT, which is 12 years ago, which is government of Sri Lanka basically launched. Right? So if you say, like, if the government changes, whether the policy will get changed, yes, those things happens. But on ICT, it got strengthened. What was written, I mean, things got added on to it. It got strengthened and strengthened and strengthened. So when initially it was launched, it was with the Prime Minister. It continued with the President again, and with the current, it is under the President directly. So ICT was, like, every government in Sri Lanka specifically was on power. Basically took those decisions in investment into education system, or investment into infrastructure, all those was increased year on year, and also tax benefits was given year on year. So as I mentioned about the value-added tax was bringing into zero. Even recently, about 2 to 3 years ago, there was a tax of 2.5. They made it to zero. Broadband, yes, broadband was reduced, cost was reduced, taxes was reduced for broadband. That's why we, as a country, we have the lowest broadband cost, which is in. Even things like the pay tax for ICT BPO sector, software engineers and that community, which is trying to attract Sri Lankans who live abroad and all that to come and add value to our economy, right? Those policy decisions was taken, say in the modern era, it's very difficult to give tax benefits to people because cost of the government goes up and all those things. But ICT is one of the things governments continually did investment. I think because of that, you can see the results. Whatever the goals we have set, which is going very steadily, and we have been growing, and you can see a lot of investment basically coming in from ICT. Like even local grown companies, we have seen going and winning global accounts, which is competing with global players like 500 Fortune companies, but Sri Lankan origin companies went and won. Even recently, I saw even for the second time, Sri Lanka has been nominated as the preferred BPO, IT BPO destination of the world. So these are the things, because why that nomination happened. We have done, or governments have done a lot of policy decisions on this same. And also, the two institutions actually, it was led from the President's office. ICT was actually I basically call ICT as the CIO for the country. So basically, they do that job for perfection, I can say. And also, the other hand, on the Minister of Education, which is the prime engine of creating the education, right? They have done the right things. Investment has gone in. So when you look at every budget for the last so many years, you just search for ICT, you will have many popping up in the sheet, which is saying ICT, so many millions has been invested, so many tax has been reduced. So stability is critical, and those policy changes has to be done, and you need to continue with it. So as I think Sri Lanka has, we can proudly say we have done the right things, and we are fast tracking on our ICT adoption, and you can see the results day by day. That's why, when you look at the country, the phone density is more than the population of the country.
Yeah.
And if we look at the 3G technology, we are across the nation. Broadband, we have across the nation at a very low cost. And the 4G is already coming in the metros. The 4G is already there. So when you look at how the technology is coming in, if you look at the neighboring countries, they are still figuring out how to get the 3G, which is we are moving into 4G.
But Mr. Zoysa, numbers are good when it comes to the ICT development part, but our budgets towards R&D, research and development, is not that sufficient enough. So what we can do in order to have a good basement for the research and development? What are the measures that we should put in practice?
So research and development is, yes, relatively it's little lower.
Yeah.
But things where, say again, to get into the R&D side, we need to have that education. Please basically need to be reformed on that. So we are primarily not into that R&D development space as such. But if you compare a place like Bangalore or something, which is they have a huge workforce which is skilled, especially on the ICT side. There's a lot of development happening. But yes, when you look at the scale as a percentage, the number may be smaller, because say we have a very limited number of engineering universities and places like Moratuwa, Colombo and Peradeniya and all that. But number of graduates, engineering graduates, what we produce, it little numbers are small, but we have best of them. We have cream of them, and that's why we managed to develop those kind of world-winning kind of applications, homegrown applications, which we can take to the world and compete with the global giants. And also, we have, if you look at a lot of organizations, many top places, you find Sri Lankan engineers who are working all over the world in many decision-making places, including in India. We have, even up to the level of senior VP, Sri Lankan Motor University graduate which is there. So people have managed to achieve that because we have that. But the thing is, on the R&D side of it, I don't know whether that should be yes, definitely that has to be done. But do we really need to go into R&D on that which scale? That is, in my knowledge, that is being not really scaled, or like, we are not kind of looked at it as my knowledge is right now. But yes, that's an area we can think through, or like, people will start to think through. But again, things like the nanotechnologies, it is growing. We have a research center coming in. Yes, one by one, it will get added on. As a country, we can't do everything at once also, right? So we have now developed the ICT part of it. And now, probably the next stage is like, let's go to the R&D space. We have currently happening, but as a percentage, I think in the region, we are on the top still. But we need to do like exceed expectation level. We need to probably get into that more. But again, from an investment point of view, on a tax holidays, all that, I think we have good infrastructure for it, which is like, organizations like the BOI and all that again encourage foreign investment. I mean, we need knowledge to come in, right? Those organizations come and set up operations here. So I think that we have the best of the platforms here. Now we need to do the right things going future. Make sure we basically build on it. We have done the hard work. So now we need to build on it, like, which is we talk about the smart Sri Lanka right now. That is the key thing. I think we have smart people and definitely best in this part of the world, in my opinion. And we will definitely have, like, we have the infrastructure, we will build on it for sure.
Finally, Mr. Zoysa, on a more personal note, how important it is to have marketing knowledge to prosper in the field of IT?
This is one of the
because you've been a marketer.
Yes. So this is one of the things actually, like, actually I took this example on one of the meetings as well, like, I was part of the Knowledge Hub initiative. So one of the things was like, we did an excellent job on marketing Silonti. I think that is a very excellent thing, which is like nobody in the world, in the tea market, that anywhere in the world you go and Ceylon tea is known, right? Yeah. So that's exactly what we need to do. Like what we marketed Ceylon tea, we have this knowledge, we have all this. We need to package it properly and sell it to the world. So that is something. And also I do a little bit of mentoring for the Motor University students which is coming in. So actually one of the feedbacks I have given, like, these students, they're engineering students, they have the best of the knowledge, they have best of the products developed, but they fail in marketing. I said, like, let's get the marketing, let's get a marketing student and couple with them. Get that engineering idea, get the marketing guy to package it properly and take it to the market. So that's exactly, marketing is also one of the critical things. I think now, where the things are getting evolved right now, you can see a lot of finance guys are becoming CEOs of companies. Right? Earlier, the trend was more of sales and marketing kind of people getting into that position. Yeah. Because say finance became, at an era of finance, became a more of a critical thing of decision making. Like that, so marketing guys will basically move into ICT. And more of ICT guys will have marketing knowledge. Also, one of the examples I can take directly, like, this is not related to marketing, but now, which is the postgraduate institute of medicine, PGM of medicine. They have a degree, which is they take the medical doctors, MBBS doctors, and they get to do an ICT degree. Right. Postgraduate, not a degree, postgraduate. So what will happen is, these doctors will become a CIO of a hospital. So he is a medical doctor who will basically manage the ICT systems which is coming into the hospital. Because healthcare is another area, whereas ICT will get implemented very fast. So this is, I think Sri Lanka is one of the few countries in this part of the world who has that PGM. I think there are a lot of foreign students also coming and trying to join them, because that is what is needed. So that's what I said, like, we have done the right things, like, even if you take medical, we have done the right thing. So these medical doctors getting in, so you have the medical knowledge, you have the ICT knowledge, that's a complete package what you need, and he will know, or he or she will know how to implement ICT into the healthcare sector. Because if you put an IT guy, probably he will not understand the healthcare system what we need, like as what the precautions or the measures you need to take. But here you have that entire kind of thing. So that's another example which came to my mind just now. I think say marketing, all this, like you need to combine, and actually ICT will act as a bridge across. ICT is is subject plus, as I said, for example, like what you get when you get into a job, first thing email and a PC. So you need ICT across.
Thank you very much, Mr. Indika,
You're welcome.
the country business manager of Intel, talking to us on the importance of ICT and the IT infrastructure for a country to prosper and to develop. So thank you very much once again. So keep watching the hot seat on Sri Lanka Live.